All right, ladies and gentlemen, emergency podcast. I believe we're finally live. We had a little bit of issues, so we finally got it fixed. Graham, the Florida Gators have fired Billy Napier as of 2 hours ago. Can you believe it?
Hope.
Hope. That was Graham. You know what?
Somebody not named Billy Napier.
We had hope. Remember the game we were at a couple of years ago when Florida beat Utah, and we had this guy by the name of Anthony Richardson who was the Heisman front runner. Oh my God, we had hope back then.
We did.
And the following week, it didn't take long, Graham, because the following week Florida lost to Kentucky, and then it hadn't been uphill since then. You had a 6-6 record. You went to the Vegas Bowl, and it hasn't been good since then. Graham, to put it blunt, I'm pretty surprised they actually did this. There was a coaches meeting that we were told at 1:00, and then we were told there was a players meeting at 3. I can't believe they fired him, man, after a win. I know it went pretty. I know Mississippi State pretty much won the game, but Florida had more points. I can't believe they pulled the trigger and they actually did it.
I was telling you, Dylan, that we were talking about this off air before we started, and we were texting about it back and forth earlier today. When the reporting of the coaches meeting came out, I believe Graham Hall was the first one, or he's the first one I saw at least. When he reported that, I was a little bit confused because I was like, okay, is that something that normally happens? And Graham is just posting that it's business as usual, and that Billy Napier being there means nothing's happening, or is it the opposite, meaning they don't normally meet at that time and they're meeting to say goodbye, basically? Mm-hmm. So I was like, I don't really know what that means, but I was kind of doubting they would pull the trigger on this anyway. So I was kind of leaning towards this probably just means it's business as usual. And then when I heard about the players meeting, and Graham was the first person I saw for both tweets. At least when he reported about the players meeting, he also was very clear on like, this was not previously scheduled. Like this is new information to have the players meet at this time. Like that is not normal. So then I was like, all right, it's about to happen. Like they're not randomly calling the players to meet on a Sunday after the game, heading into a bye week, nonetheless, to talk about game planning for Georgia. That ain't why they're meeting. Like they're meeting to say goodbye to their coach. Like that's what's going on. So anybody that listened to the podcast last night after the game knows that for Dylan and myself, like we're kind of surprised that this move happened. We didn't think they were actually going to pull the trigger, but we're both happy they did so, because if you've listened to us for a year plus now, we've been doing this podcast. Dylan and I would have fired him last year. I believe the Texas A&M game last year was like where you and I both were like, nah, this is never going to come.
Well, we were at 9.9 out of 10, and then when they lost at Tennessee was 12 out of 10.
Yeah, but obviously we kind of know, everybody knows this now. Everybody knows the story, but obviously, second half of the season, DJ Lagway, he's playing well. The defense figures it out. Caleb Banks, Tyreek Sapp, Aaron Gates, like these dudes are starting to play well. They're starting to gel, and they're winning some games. They don't beat Georgia, but they bring them all the way to the ropes. Even with DJ Lagway getting hurt in that game, we all believe Florida would have won had Lagway not gotten hurt last year. The Texas game, they get killed, but Lagway doesn't play, so we kind of forget that game ever happened. Beat LSU at home, beat Ole Miss at home, beat Florida State, who was terrible on the road, go make a bowl game, win the bowl game. We're all feeling good, right? Everyone's, we're singing Kumbaya. We're getting good recruits. Dallas Wilson comes in, huge recruit to get. VB3 is on his way, and everything's great. Everything's fantastic. We had a great offseason. Gator fans had a great offseason. We had a lot to be excited about. I started drinking the Kool-Aid again. Dylan, maybe not so much as I did, but you somewhat drank the Kool-Aid a little bit with Lagway and what was coming back with the talent. And then, Dylan, a funny thing happens with Billy Napier, and it happens every year. Every single year since he's been here, there's tons of offseason hype, and there's tons of players they bring in, and we're really excited about what's going to be on the field. And on paper, they look great. And then when football gets played, we don't feel the same.
You got to spot the ball.
Well, yeah, when the ball gets spotted, Napier sucks, turns out. And this guy he was never from day one, He simply wasn't cut out to coach on Saturdays at this level. And what it takes to be prepared for every single Saturday in the SEC, the decision making it takes, and how you have to be right on the money all the time. It's such a close margin with so many teams. And then if you're an offensive guy, what it takes to develop a quarterback, what it takes to be a creative play caller, what it takes to put receivers in positions to succeed, tight ends and running backs, and what it takes to do all this stuff. It was just clear he was never going to reach that point. And I would even argue that it was clear he was never going to reach that point after like year 2. So some people would even tell you year 1. And it was just like, it didn't mean that it was never going to, it ended up really not getting better. It honestly got worse most years, other than last year at the end, with the only time they ever had real momentum.
Which was because DJ Lag was probably like the best quarterback in the country.
Right, correct. And the defense woke up. And Tyreek Sapp became a really, really great player. And Caleb Banks became a really great player. But even in that stretch, like we talked about this in the offseason when we had I think we had that preseason pod, and we kind of talked about this. We talked about this some last year. Even in that stretch when they were playing really well, did we ever really believe that this guy would take them to the college football playoff semifinal and compete for a national championship? You know what I mean? Like we were happy that they were playing better, and momentum seemed to be positive, and the roster seemed really good. I don't believe anybody in their heart of hearts really truly ever saw this guy being on the sidelines when Florida is competing for a national title. Like at the highest level. At the very highest level, he was just never going to be that guy. And if he's never going to be that guy, then he can't be your coach moving forward. So today is a good day for the Florida Gators. Today is a day that we need to be happy about. I know, Dylan, you and I kind of stopped saying it, and we really never said it in the beginning in the first place, but I know how sick and tired, and you and me included, got of people saying, well, Billy Napier's a good guy. He's such a good guy. Now that he's not the coach anymore, I can say he was a good dude, and I hope that he goes on and has a really successful career somewhere else. And some things that Mullen said at the end that I think a lot of Gator fans didn't appreciate, and kind of effectively quitting on the program at the end. Jim McElwain making up death threats, like some of the really ugly breakup stuff at the end of the last 2 coaching cycles. You're not going to have here. He's genuinely a good person, and if he goes and is successful somewhere else, more power to him. I hope that's the case. But he didn't deserve to be the coach here. He didn't deserve to be the coach at the University of Florida. That is a prestigious, like select few in the coaching world type of opportunity, and he wasn't good enough for it. And that's why we're here today.
Florida owes Napier roughly $21 million for his buyout. Half of that buyout is due within the next 30 days. So between now and pretty much right before Thanksgiving. Napier went 22-23 in his 4 seasons, 12-16 in SEC play. He was 5-17 against ranked opponents, 0-14 away from home, and never gave up play calling. That was one of the main reasons why we are here, and one of the main reasons why before they went on that run last year, if you remember, he said he was going to give up play calling. They go on the run. He goes to Strickland, says, I went on the run because I'm calling plays. Let me keep calling plays. We all see the results. Against his rivals, against Florida State, Georgia, LSU, Miami, and Tennessee, he was 3-12. You got to go all the way back from the 1930s. Fewest wins by a Florida coach since then. And no Florida coach since the 1940s after World War II has a losing record. Yeah, this has been long overdue. I mean, Graham, we didn't really hit on it much last night right after the game, but the fire Billy chants, I mean, there wasn't a couple of them.
While you're winning a game, while you're winning, I've never seen that before.
You win. So not only is Mississippi State driving down the field, a timeout is called. There's fire Billy chants called being rung during the timeouts. Mississippi State throws the interception. And I'm sure you've seen the videos after the game of, the students and alumni or whoever walking out of the stadium, down the ramp to the exit, chanting Fire Billy. As we had Tony in the chat saying he was being there last night. They had to do it. I'm sure he's referencing that. That was that was really bad, man. And I know we were talking about it. There was a lot of people. Matt Hayes essentially broke the story earlier this week, middle of the week, talking about there was a meeting Tuesday that happened, and basically Napier's next loss was going to be it for him. And there was a lot of people, a couple of them. I do a podcast with Hacker on 1010XL, Gator Bites. He was like, it's gonna be a bad look if they win and they fire him. I'm like, why? That's dumb.
Not
You're
a
gonna
bad
either
look at
fire
all.
him in 2-3 weeks, or you're gonna fire him now. And
You know what's
I would rather fire him now and get a guy going to the bye week, and then you have a month, the rest of the month of the season, and you could ruin maybe Georgia's season. You could maybe ruin Ole Miss season. You could potentially beat Florida State. They're going to get another win. They might beat Kentucky, but the time was now, and they did it.
You know it's a bad look, Dylan. A bad look is keeping somebody around that doesn't deserve to be the head coach there.
No.
That's the bad look. I don't care if he won the game. It's Mississippi State at home, dude. Like, no disrespect to Mississippi State. I know they're playing a little bit better, and they got a decent coach in there, and that's fine. And, more power to them. But beating them by the grace of God at the end of the game because Mississippi State decided to keep throwing the ball for no reason at the end, and Blake Shapen just threw it right into the hands of Mekhi Barrow.
Which, by the way, I don't think he was supposed to do that, but whatever.
Who cares? But like that, like what? You're not going to fire him because Mississippi State decided to make a boneheaded play at the end?
Yeah.
When you've had 4 years of a sample size for this guy showing you he's not cut out for it, like, no. And look, I was kind of thinking about this before we started, Dylan, knowing we were going to kind of go through all of this, doing the postmortem. But like, let me tell you exactly who we have to thank for this moment and this podcast and this day. We have Alex Golish, Byron Brown, and the South Florida Bulls to thank for this moment. Because let me tell you this, if Florida had figured out a way to pull that game out at the end against USF, even looking as bad as they did, if they had just won the game, every other loss they've had so far wasn't necessarily a loss that we wouldn't have said would be a reasonable loss before the season, right? It was LSU at LSU. Like, we always said that game was going to be tough. Miami at Miami, we always said that game was going to be tough. And Miami, I know they lost the other night, but for all intents and purposes for this conversation, like, they're better than we even anticipated them being, right? Like, we didn't think they were going to be a top 3 to 4 team in the country, which they have been most. I know they're going to fall out of those rankings now, but they have been that most of the year, right? And then at Texas A&M, who's been a top 5 team, if not higher than that, the whole year they lost on the road. Like they lost a quality opponent. It's not like, other than South Florida, it's not like they've lost to a bunch of bums. But that USF game is in my opinion, what has made all of this egregious enough to get the boosters and Scott Strickland to finally pull the trigger and actually move forward with it. If they had beaten USF, I firmly don't believe we'd be having this conversation right now.
No.
And it doesn't mean that he wouldn't have eventually still been fired by the end of the year, but getting it done now and making that statement to the fan base that this is no longer acceptable, I don't believe would have happened today. But that's important. Like a lot of people like to say, it doesn't matter if it happens now versus 2 weeks from now versus the end of the season. For all intents and purposes, yeah, it probably doesn't. But to me, like you and I are both alumni of this university. A lot of people that watch this are, and if not, you're still a diehard, like, passionate Gator fan, right? To me, it comes down to, like, again, I've said this multiple times in this podcast already. Dylan, being the head coach at Florida should be an incredibly, like, rare, prestigious job, right? Like, it is a one-of-one type of job in college football that only, like, the best of the best, like, the very most qualified in the sport should be even considered for. And as long as this guy that is clearly overwhelmed at this level, clearly doesn't belong at this level and has been given plenty of time, as long as he is employed, you're sending a message to your fan base that you're okay with that you're okay with this just being a run-of-the-mill job instead of what we think of it as being one of the most hallowed, important jobs in college football. And if the athletic director doesn't see it that way, then how do the rest of us expect to see it that way? So finally making that statement that we're not going to put up with this any longer, beating Mississippi State by a thread or not, is a big statement that matters. And I really hope that the boosters and Strickland can get together and continue to make that statement with the next hire, because that's the more important part of this conversation.
I mean, when you're in the offseason and you say, this is the best roster I've ever had, and you're talking about, the offensive line and all these, not Napier saying this, but you look at projected mock drafts for, next year, and you have Caleb Banks and you have Sapp and you have two offensive linemen that are projected to go in the top 3 or 4 rounds. And, we already know how young these receivers are and how talented they were in the defense, and they are all coming back. Everything was there. Everything was lined up to be good. And then the Lagway injury, something that's kind of been lost too. The Lagway not playing in the spring, and then he's in a boot to start camp. And then it's clear that you could tell in the game against Long Island, like he had not practiced at all. He was completely out of rhythm. And then the USF game happens, and you get out physicaled in the second half by a team in your state, by the kids that you don't recruit. That's the most damning part to add to your point. And then it was a trickle down effect from there, man. And then also on top of that is the same issues that happen time and time again. The only thing that was different this year was the defense is a hell of a lot better. Everything else, the special teams continue to have miscues. The offense continued to have miscues. And it was the same thing you saw from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 to this year. And it's unacceptable.
Dude, it's year 4. His job is completely on the line. Multiple losses into the season. And yet, yesterday, they still had 12 men on the field on special teams. They still had 12 men on the field on special teams. That is so insanely baffling to me. Like, how in the world can you keep letting that happen? I mean, it's over the course of 4 years. 4 years, dude. How do you keep letting the same exact things keep plaguing you? And this is the question too. Like, or statement, sorry. Like, every single game that they've lost this year and most years and most of the time he's been here. And you and I have been doing a podcast for basically half of it, so we can go back to prior conversations we've had. There is not one game, Dylan, where I can't point to an obvious coaching error that helped cost them the game. It was either the thing that cost them the game or it really helped them lose the game. An obvious coaching error. And by coaching error, I don't mean, okay, an offensive lineman held somebody, so we're calling it coaching because it's a penalty. That's not what I mean. I mean 12 men on the field. I mean receivers running to the same spot. I mean 2 number 3s on the field from a few years ago.
Against Utah.
I mean shit like that. And it never went away. And it was never going to go away. And year 1, when he had these, there were a lot of these red flags in year 1. Going back now, there were a lot of things where it's like, man, we maybe should have had our radar up a little bit harder. But a lot of us were kind of drinking the Kool-Aid and basically just blaming Dan Mullen on everything.
Well, there's that too. And the roster that Dan Mullen left, I mean, if you be honest, you look at that roster from 2021, half of those guys shouldn't even belong on an SEC roster.
Yeah.
So everybody gave him a pass.
Yeah. Zaire TV saying, serious question, Denmark and Marsh, why can't these schools just implement clauses that state if you grossly underperform, you will not receive a large buyout? Okay, here's the problem, because here's why, Zaire, like, everybody wants Lane Kiffin right now, right? We're all pounding the table for Lane Kiffin. We want him bad. Lane Kiffin's having a ton of success in Ole Miss. tell him that's going to be in his contract, and then try to get him to pull the trigger on coming. Like that ain't going to happen.
No coach is ever going to sign a contract like that.
No coach that's desirable. Because listen, any coach that is desirable is going to have some type of negotiating power when you and that's how these big buyouts happen. Now, do I think that the sport in general needs to do something to contain that a little bit more? Yes. Like Jimmy Sexton has the entire sport by the throat with the way he negotiates contracts. But I mean, he's doing a great job by his clients, but I do think that be it the NCAA, be it the administrations, somebody's got to kind of get a grip on this. But again, the problem is teams that need coaches are teams that are in situations like Florida. We're desperate for a good coach. Like we need a good coach badly. Like he's going to have a lot of negotiating power over the University of Florida. Like it's easy to say in hindsight when you've had to fire the coach and they've had years where they failed and not been good. It's easy to say, well, that was stupid. We shouldn't have paid them all that guaranteed money and blah, 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 blah. But when you're at the negotiating table and you think this is the guy that's going to save your program and they're saying this is our stipulations, take it or leave it, like it's kind of hard to say no to that. Now, I will say, to be fair, though, going back to Billy Napier had never been coaching serious ball at a serious level. Billy Napier had only been a coordinator or a receivers coach for serious teams.
For Alabama and Clemson.
At Alabama or Clemson, and when he was the OC at Clemson, he got fired after one season. So for Billy Napier specifically, I don't know if you needed to throw the bag at him like that. It was really down to, for anybody that remembers, LSU was interested in Billy Napier at the time because LSU and Florida needed a coach at the same time. The whole Brian Kelly thing happens with LSU. He obviously leaves Notre Dame. He comes to LSU. Once LSU got Brian Kelly, what other big school was going to go hire Billy Napier? And also, by the way, too, like this I always struggled with the first few years of Napier. Because obviously there's no Billy Napier apologists anymore. They've been gone for years now. But the first few years, the Billy Napier apologists used to say stuff like, oh, you got to give him time. You got to let him do his thing. You got to let Billy like get his whole thing in there. Like it's a slow process, but like you'll see one day, like let him build this whole thing. And I would always think to myself, I'm like, wait a minute. Before he emerged as a serious candidate to take the Florida Gator coaching job, what percentage of Gator fans, Dylan, do you think had ever heard of Billy Napier?
Less than 5.
Yeah. Like maybe a few. Like it was like I didn't know who the hell he was. So why am I supposed to believe in this long methodical process that he's got when all he's ever done head coaching wise is be at Louisiana and I don't know who the hell he is, but I'm supposed to believe this guy is going to be the savior of my program?
Because a lot of people were believing that because remember, right when he got there, he was flipping kids from IMG. He was flipping kids and getting recruits that Dan Mullen was never getting. So you're like, just wait till these kids develop and they get in our program and they're not freshmen and we're going to be really good. That was the line of thinking.
Which I get. And we talk again, all these things, I keep repeating myself, but all these things are things we've talked about over and over and over again. But I said it last night. I've said it multiple times this year. The number one thing, Dylan, that I don't know if I was ever going to get past for as long as he was the coach, and this dates back a few years now, there's a really, really, really big sample size to show that players get worse under Billy Napier's watch, not better. We talked about Eugene Wilson last night. Eugene Wilson was night and day a better football player as a freshman than he is right now as a junior. That's a problem. The two best receivers you have right now are both freshmen, and they're incredibly talented. Like they're there making plays for a reason between Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown III. But I think we all believe that if those guys were even still in the program 2 years from now under Billy Napier, they wouldn't be as good because that's just kind of how things tend to go with him. Whatever quarterback they'd have wouldn't be any good. This was similar to when Will Muschamp was the coach. Will Muschamp is 3 times the coach Billy Napier's ever thought about being. But Will Muschamp on the offense side, he never got offense right? He never hired that offensive coordinator that was going to like really get them to where they needed to be. But the recruiting was there. The defense was there. They never hired that guy on the offensive side of the ball with Will Muschamp, but that's why it failed, right? But it was kind of similar in the sense that, like, I remember in the Muschamp era, and even somewhat in the McElwain era, We used to always talk about, why can't we find a quarterback? We can't find a quarterback. All these quarterbacks stink. Every quarterback we get is just bad. It's almost like it's not the quarterback, it's the system the quarterback is being placed into. And it didn't matter if Florida during the Muschamp era could have gotten 5 consecutive 5-star quarterbacks. They probably all wouldn't have been very good because it just wasn't set up for quarterbacks to succeed. And with Billy Napier, which is even more shocking because he's a former quarterback, he's the play caller, he's the QB coach, like he's all of it. Every single quarterback he had got worse under his watch, and none of them were ever super productive. Graham Mertz was the most productive, but that's relative. Like if we're talking about truly competing for Heisman Trophy level production, Graham Mertz never sniffed that. So it's like between Anthony Richardson, who should have been Anthony Richardson in the NFL, a different story, but in college, that guy should have been an unbelievable talent. Like he should have been in New York competing for a Heisman Trophy with proper coaching. I believe in college. DJ Lagway, obviously, like we know how talented he is, but this guy was never going to put them in enough of a situation to succeed. So that was a really long rant. What say you?
No, I mean, just look at this year. The one side of the ball that Napier doesn't coach was by far and away the best side of the ball, the defense. And his side of the ball where he controls, he runs the offense, he's the play caller, he's the quarterback coach. Those were bad.
Yeah. The 3 worst parts of the team, arguably.
And it wasn't even close. I mean, the South, again, for the people that didn't listen to our show last night, he scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter this season. And the 2 touchdowns happened in the fourth quarter at the very beginning of the fourth quarter when they got the drive late in the third quarter. You have 30 yards of offense against Miami with 1 first down, and you don't complete a single first down conversion, third down conversion against Miami. The LSU game, your quarterback throws 5 interceptions. You have a run game, and your quarterback throws the ball 49 times when your quarterback is not playing good at all. The list just goes on and 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 on. It's just he's not qualified for the job, and play calling is a very difficult thing, and it doesn't get easier when you're playing in the SEC, and you are you play 1 cream puff this year, and that's Long Island. That was week 1. And you know that you could have played your backups and you still would have won by 40. Other than that, you would have had to have coached well, and your players would have had to been executed, and the plan that you had every single week.
And it was clear too, even the two wins against real teams they had this year, yesterday and against Texas. Dylan, the players won those games in spite of their coaching. Not because of their coaching. Like the players, because he has recruited well, he has gotten good talent on this roster. Like you have to give credit where credit is due. They performed in spite of the bad situations their coaches put them in, right? Like they won because Dallas Wilson is just that damn good. Like they won because in single coverage, Dallas Wilson can't be stopped, and DJ Lagway is really, really good throwing the ball down the field and hit him dead in the hands on a big 50-plus yard touchdown, however far that was. And then the other touchdown Dallas Wilson scored as well. And then some other guys obviously performing. Vernell Brown stepping up at times. Like, they're winning because of individual performances from these players, not because the coaches are showing up with a game plan in all 3 phases to be successful, because they legitimately never do that. It's just, will the players be able to rise above it this week or not? And when they haven't been, they have lost in pretty epic fashion. When they have been, they've had decent wins.
Yeah.
That's about it. And it's like, I'm sorry, you're never going to win. You're never going to win at the highest level by that being the formula. That ain't going to work, dude. So I'm glad it's over. I know you're glad it's over. Unless you had some final thoughts you want to say on the Napier side.
No, I was just gonna. The last thing I was gonna say is, the potential candidates.
Yeah, that's
Lane Kiffin's by far and away number 1 for me. When you mentioned Rhett Lashley, that is number 2 on my list. Offensive guy. I feel like a guy that could win it. that could win at Florida. Knows what it takes. Been a coordinator at a high level school and is winning at SMU, who hasn't been winning since the 80s, well before we were born.
Well, and Rhett Lashlee's he's a good. I'm sorry to cut you off, but he's a good example of what we're talking about here in terms of putting your player, specifically your quarterback, in position to succeed. And I was talking about this a few weeks back because everybody was killing DJ Lagway when he threw 5 picks against LSU, and he deserved criticism. He played horrible. I'm not saying that he's blame free, but what I was saying at the time, and I still believe this. Okay, take SMU again for example. You're telling me that Rhett Lashlee couldn't have DJ Lagway playing at a Kevin Jennings level? Of course he could, and probably much better than that. So it's that's kind of the whole point I've always had. You're telling me Lane Kiffin couldn't have DJ Lagway performing at a Trinidad Chambliss level? Of course he could. We got to be real here, people. You get the 5-star quarterback with 5-star talent that has clearly shown what he's able to do. You get him with a good offense, calling good plays and running tempo and keeping defenses off balance, and then feeding Jaden Ball in the backfield, letting him get 100+ yards a game, and then getting Dallas Wilson in front. You're telling me with that talent, with a good coach that knows how to hit the soft spots of the defense and keep the defense uncomfortable, you're telling me these guys wouldn't be some of the most explosive offensive players in the country? Of course they would.
Yeah.
These players or these coaches that have players that are far less talented than Florida are putting up 30, 35, 40 points a game. And Florida can't get out of its own way. That's the reason Billy Napier's not the coach today.
Yeah, I was looking, Lane Kiffin's far and away the number one guy for me. The main question moving forward is who's going to be the one that's making the decision. Is it going to be the AD Strickland? Is it going to be the boosters? I believe it's going to be the boosters. They're the ones that I believe, kind of force this firing.
I do too.
And they're going to be the ones that are going to make the decision, or at least going to force their way. There is a lot of people. I'm not going to say a lot. There's a decent amount of people that say, what has Lane Kiffin done? He, was at Tennessee for a year and left, went to USC, didn't win there, which, by the way, they had plenty of sanctions where they didn't have full scholarships. And it was right after the Pete Carroll, which if you people remember, that was a mess when he left. Went to the NFL.
That was also 20 years ago at this point.
Yeah, it was 10 years. It was 2010, 2011. Then
16 15 years ago.
And then he's the coordinator at Alabama. He's the head coach at Florida Atlantic, and now he's the head coach at Ole Miss. Let me remind people, Ole Miss is consistently a top 15 team year in and year out. And as long as Lane Kiffin is at Ole Miss, they're a top 15 team. Graham, I don't think they've been a top 15 team in the country since the 1960s. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't even think black players were allowed to play in the SEC back then, in the 1960s.
I want to say that was when the first black student was allowed on campus at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Have you seen that documentary? I'm talking about the documentary, the SEC story. But yeah, I mean, they've never been a long-term contender like that until Lane Kiffin. So I agree. And whether it's Lane or one of these other guys, it's got to be, and I'm going to say this until I'm blue in the face. I don't care that I keep repeating it. It has to be a head coach at the Power 4 level. It has to be. It has to be. It cannot be a coordinator, and it cannot be a G5 guy. It has to be someone that is a proven winner at the highest level of college football. Not doing that is why we're in the situation we're in. Because consistently, look, the most proven, if you will, coach that Florida has hired since Urban Meyer left the door in 2010 is Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen is also the best coach they have had since Urban Meyer. I know he left poorly. They need to find one. But Dan Mullen is the best coach they've had since Urban Meyer. And I don't even think
it's not even close.
It's not even close. Dan Mullen came. He was a head coach at Mississippi State, another SEC school. He had them ranked number 1 back in 2015. He had won some big games there. I'm not advocating you hire Dan Mullen again, obviously. what I'm saying is you need someone even more proven than that. You need someone that has done something of significance at the Power 5 level, and keeping Ole Miss relevant for this long and this good, to your point, Dylan, I totally agree. Lane is my top guy.
I like.
Jonathan says Lane is Dan 2.0. No, he's
I
not.
was
Stop.
about to say, man, these people, bro.
Lane is not Dan 2.0. No, he's not. That's
I
a ridiculous thing to say.
obviously you don't know right now. Speaking like in the future, I am just so damn sure if Lane comes to Florida, he makes Florida a playoff team. If not year one, for damn sure in year two.
Yeah.
With a 16-team playoff.
And with how much he portal shops, it probably would be year one, to your point.
Yeah.
Like even if DJ Lagway were to leave, like let's say they were to get Lane. I believe if they get Lane, a lot of this talent would stay because they'd be excited about the offense they could play in.
Agree.
But let's say even if DJ or some of these other guys left, especially a quarterback, if he were to leave, I believe in my heart of hearts that at very worst, Lane Kiffin would go get somebody in the portal from some small school and it's some dude we've never heard of. And by midway through the year, they'd be talking about him being in New York for the Heisman.
Dude, what game was it? It was like 4 weeks ago. Their quarterback gets hurt. They have their backup come in, and he was just flawless. I mean, like there was no drop off, and they won the game handedly. Right? If Lagway got hurt, you could get this paper ball, whatever the plan is, and you could just scratch that up and you just go, there goes our season. I mean, as if we had one, before, the USF game.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said all year, this team goes as far as Lagway, and Lagway proved that he wasn't healthy, and when he wasn't good, the team wasn't good. And you talk about the roster and the line and this and that, none of that junk matters. And the quarterback with Lagway is directly tied with Napier. That's why it wasn't good. That's why you got to get a good head coach that's going to call the plays. And I believe Lane Kiffin's the main guy. And if it's not, I would get Rhett Lashley. You can forget Dan Lanning. You can forget Marcus Freeman. Those guys are not leaving. And then, after that, it'd probably be Eli Drinkwitz, who I don't really care for. I know he's going to win a lot of games at Missouri this year. Look at Missouri's schedule. They don't play two of the toughest teams they play on their schedule is Vandy. I know Vandy's having a good year, but it's Vandy.
If Missouri had Florida's schedule, they would have beaten USF, but I think the rest of the record would be the exact same.
Yeah, dude. And they barely got by Auburn last night. Auburn's not good.
No, Auburn's as bad as Florida. Auburn and Florida are pretty much the same program right now. What we've already talked about it some, but let's talk about it more since it's actually a real conversation now and there's actually an opening. James Franklin again. Let's revisit James Franklin. Thoughts?
I wouldn't.
You've already talked about this for the people that maybe weren't in the conversation last time.
I wouldn't love it. I wouldn't be over the moon just because that was a guy at a big time program that didn't really. I mean, his MO was he didn't really win top 10 games. And I know he was one game away from making the playoff, but I mean his 10-year tenure at Penn State. I wouldn't be over the moon, but I would want James Franklin over Eli Drinkwitz.
You would want James Franklin over Eli Drinkwitz?
Yeah, so it'd be like
same.
They'd be Lane 1, Lashley 2, James Franklin 3 would be probably my wish list right now.
I think that's fair. I think that's a good list. I would love James Franklin, and to me, out of those three, I agree with you. I would probably have those three like some level, like some same order of those three. Lane 1, I might have James Franklin ahead of Lashley, but like whatever, interchange. Like I'd be over the moon over either higher. I think when you're combining like what, at least for you and I standards, for what we want, for what is realistic, I really am starting to believe James Franklin is like. I would not be surprised at all if he emerges as the most likely candidate. I'm just putting this together in my head. Like again, I don't have any sources. I have nothing telling me anything. This is literally me just speculating, and I could be dead wrong. But I'm just kind of the wheels are spinning a little bit. James Franklin gets fired last week. Okay, after they lose to UCLA, right? They can him. Then like 2 days later, or maybe 3 days later. The report comes out from Matt Hayes that influential boosters met with Scott Strickland about Billy Napier in the direction of the football program. And then after a win, a bad win, but a win, they fire Billy Napier. I'm just putting stuff together, Dylan, that kind of makes some sense in the trajectory of things, because all those other guys, we talked earlier about contracts, all those other guys have buyouts that you would have to chip in a significant amount, if not all of it, to get them away from their current school. And you have to go convince them to leave their current school in the first place.
Yep.
Whereas James Franklin was very vocal on Saturday that he wants to coach, again, like as soon as humanly possible, and he's unemployed. So I'm just putting it together, like what would be a hire that people should, in my opinion, be excited about versus like realistic to actually happen and covers the bases that we just talked about needs to have some type of proven winning track record in the Power 4 level. Like he's the one guy that kind of covers everything.
Yeah, and you have to think about it too. Virginia Tech is open, UCLA is open, Arkansas is open, Florida State might be open by the end of the year. I mean, just think out loud here. What are some of the other programs? What other schools could potentially be open in a month from now that you would consider big time?
Who you're going to be competing against? Virginia Tech fired their coach, right?
Yeah, Virginia Tech, Arkansas, UCLA,
Penn State, obviously.
Penn State. Thank you. And then it maybe Florida State if they continue to lose the way they are.
With the stuff that's popping up with Florida State, I don't know if he's going to be fired right now, but I would be pretty stunned if Mike Norvell made it all the way through the end of the season to be the head coach for next year. At this point, once you start getting those on-3 reports and booster, we just saw with Napier. Like once those reports with some legitimacy come out, you normally don't survive that.
Yeah, and Rick Ballou tweeted out, this was Wednesday or Thursday. He said he was, according to him, he tweeted out, he said he had talked to one of the big boosters there, and he said there had been no, at the time, before they lost to Stanford, there was no talks of him being canned, which obviously that changes if you continue to lose and you have no conference wins in the ACC.
The ACC, that's crazy.
Dude, it's so bad. That game was so bad. And Castellanos, I watched the entire game. He didn't get out in concussed until there was 2.5 minutes left in the game. And Stanford is one of the worst FBS, definitely one of the worst Power 4 programs in all of college football. And they almost seemingly just kind of did what they wanted to do. I know they only scored 20, but Stanford had an O-lineman go out. Their quarterback went out. And it was like a running back or a receiver. One of the skill guys went out. And Stanford still beat them. Like, that's bad, dude. I don't care if you got to go across the country and you're playing that game kicking off at midnight. That's a terrible look.
Yeah. Are we missing any other big job?
Yeah, I don't know. Y'all can help us out in the chat. I'm trying to think of,
because I think John Mateers kind of saved Venables at Oklahoma.
Yeah. I don't think Oklahoma's going to be open.
They're good enough to where they're not going to can him. But what about Hugh Freeze at Auburn? He's been
he'll be canned.
It's really bad. Yeah. I think so too. I think that's the other big one. I would say, no disrespect to the other schools, but I would say you're really talking about Auburn, Penn State, and Florida as like these schools, like the jobs. And if Auburn and Florida like the same coach, like you got to compete with them for that, or Penn State, or what have you. Clemson, I don't know. What do you think? You think Dabo's going to get canned at the end of the year?
The more games they lose, I don't know
it's looking bad. I agree. It's getting worse every week.
Yeah,
a month ago that would have been crazy to say. It's not as crazy.
I don't know if Clemson will fire him. They might mutually part ways. So yeah, it would not surprise me at this point right now where we stand if Clemson, if Dabo Swinney's not at Clemson. In a month from now.
Well, and then I guess Florida State too, if they can Norvell. So those are more ifs, I would say, at this point. I would say the all, obviously Florida and Penn State currently have openings. I think Auburn's probably going to have an opening sooner than later. And those two, like you could put your hat in the same ring, I would say. But yeah, I mean, I do agree with you. Like if Florida State and or Clemson keep losing games, like things could look even more dire a month from now.
Yeah. South Carolina, maybe, but they're not one of those schools.
I wouldn't consider South Carolina. I agree with you. I wouldn't consider them in the same. South Carolina is in the same breath as Virginia Tech, in that realm. So, yeah. That said, I don't know that Lane would leave Ole Miss for any of those jobs other than Florida. Agree or disagree?
I agree.
I think with the fact that he grew up a huge fan of Steve Spurrier, that's kind of his coaching idol. The fact that Florida would allow him to stay in the SEC, obviously, and really potentially win at the highest level. Anytime Florida has won at an elite level, it's been with the exact style that Lane Kiffin would win at. I think he's got a really good thing going at Ole Miss. I think he would leave for the right opportunity, and I think this is the right opportunity. That is my opinion.
Yeah, and another thing too with those coaches, a little bit with Urban, but definitely with Spurrier. I know Spurrier played there, was an alum at Florida. The coaches like represent like kind of how the fans are.
Yeah,
and Lane Kiffin is definitely
oh my God, it's
like borderlines that cocky and arrogant, that charismatic, smart ass, wears the visor, doesn't care what anybody thinks about anything. He's gonna say
wants to run up the score.
Yes.
If he's up 28 in the fourth, he wants to win by 42.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a big reason, other than him just being a bozo. That's another big reason Billy Napier didn't succeed here. He does not fit what makes Florida successful. I mean, forget football. Look at other sports too. Like Billy Donovan is the one guy that's kind of like bucked this trend of like successful Florida coaches, because Billy Donovan was never arrogant. Like he was always very like classy type of guy. But other than that, I mean, Todd Golden is arrogant. Todd Golden, when they went on the road, he is gator chomping in people's faces, man. And obviously Spurrier, obviously Meyer, Sully in baseball is that way. Coach Mouse in track is that way. I mean, I'm getting into the weeds of other sports, but you get what I'm saying. Like that is when Florida is successful. Like when Florida thinks I'm better than you and I'm going to prove it to you, and then I'm going to rub it in your face. Like that type of coach is who has success at Florida. Remember Urban Meyer calling timeouts against Georgia in 2008 after the BS that Mark Richt pulled in 2007? Like that type of attitude is what wins at Florida. We need a coach, and I know it's bad timing to say this right now because I know that Ole Miss just lost to Georgia. I understand. But all the banter back and forth between Kirby and Lane Kiffin this past week, we need that in the Florida-Georgia rivalry. Like, we need oxygen, bro. Like, we need a coach.
Bro, think about
Kirby Smart and be like, oh, I was just clapping, and make fun of him with the refs. Like, we need stuff like that.
Think about this, dude. Florida hasn't beaten Georgia since 2020. Okay. Florida has not beaten Georgia in a full stadium because remember 2020 was COVID, half capacity or quarter capacity, whatever. Florida has not beaten Georgia in a full capacity stadium in Jacksonville since 2016.
Who was the quarterback for the Gators in that game?
Wasn't it Jack Del Rio?
Luke Del Rio.
Jack Del Rio. I was at that game with my brother. The year we graduated high school, Graham, 9 years ago. We're damn near 30. God bless, man. Yeah, that's another thing, too. You talk about these rivalries. Like, Florida's won 3 games against their rivals since Napier started, since he took over. And really, 2 of them were Tennessee at home, which I don't feel like that counts. That's like an automatic. It's a given. I mean, I hate to be that kind of arrogant, but damn, they ain't done it in 20 years.
Florida or Tennessee walks into the swamp and they shit their pants. That's just what happens.
Yeah, they walk by Lake Alice and they just crumble. Something. I don't know. Oh God. It was hope, man. We had hope game 1. That was it.
This is a great day for the university because it finally symbolizes the boosters and Scott Strickland, probably not Scott Strickland, really more the boosters, finally saying enough is enough, finally saying this isn't acceptable, and finally saying we're going to move on and go get ourselves a winner. I tend to believe that this is a statement that they are going to go try and really swing for the fences for that next coach that we just talked about. This is a good sign to me that they're going to really try for a big fish hire in general. And it's not to say that, like, you and I kind of generally agree on the top. You and I are like very aligned on what we think is going to be successful. For the shirt.
Never. This is going to the Hall of Fame.
Dylan, you and I are very like aligned on what we think will make a successful coach, and like we tend to like the same candidates. But even if it's someone else, if it's someone that fits that general criteria, like we were talking about, of someone that has proven they can win at the Power 4 level on a consistent basis, like I'll be excited about whoever it is. But I need that. It can't be a G5 guy and we're giving him a promotion, or a coordinator who's never had his own thing. It cannot be that. I don't want that. I'm uninterested. It's got to be someone really, really big. And this move, instead of just waiting until, after the Georgia game or waiting until later in the season, tells me the boosters are so fed up that they're going to make a real swing for the fences type of hire.
Yeah, ever since Urban Meyer left, every hire's been like, okay. Like, Dan Mullen, you're like, you felt a little better, but there hasn't been a, like, holy smokes, like, we got a dude. We can be a player here pretty soon. And again, this will be the last thing I say before yes, it's a Napier. It's the Obama slogan 2008, hope, with Billy Napier's face on it. I'm going to wear this till the day I die. You can put it in my casket. Since 2014, Florida State's made the playoff. Miami probably will make the playoff this year. If not, they've been really close. They've been in contention. Tennessee's made the playoff. Georgia's made it. LSU. Every team that Florida competes with in recruiting that they consider a rival has been in the playoff, except them. And the only time they came close was 2020. They had 3 losses in the regular season. That's bad. And it's about time where I know it's not official yet, but it's probably going to be tending to a 16-team playoff next year. You got to be in the playoff contention every year, because every coach is going to be based on a successful or unsuccessful season if you make the playoff or not.
And with a 12 team, when you're Florida, like, why are you not? Yeah, to Baseman's point, Vandy, like, bro, Vandy's going to make the college football playoff before Florida.
Sorry, say that again.
To Mr. Baseman's point, Vandy is going to make the college football playoff before the Gators do, bro.
At this, yeah. I mean,
bro, Vandy's 6-1, man.
If they let me see the schedule the rest of the year. The game day is going to be there Saturday when they play Missouri. So they play Missouri, they play Texas, they play Auburn, play Kentucky, they play Tennessee. Damn, they got a legit shot.
The main thing that's going to be tough for them is I'm pretty sure they have to go to Knoxville.
Yeah, at the end of the year.
So that's going to be tough.
And they go to Texas next week.
They're better than Texas.
Yeah, did you watch any of that Texas-Kentucky game?
Yes.
Like, Texas ain't.
Disgusting watch.
Yeah, they
that felt like a Jags-Titans Thursday Night Football game from, like, 2013.
Russell Wilson first year in Denver.
Yes, exactly.
Games. So, all right, Dan, we almost went an hour talking about a coach being fired. Like and subscribe to the channel. I know we've had a lot of people come in and out. I need to start saying that more often. We did get to our 400 subscribers, Graham. We're at like 405, 407, something like that. Keep doing that. We appreciate you. And hopefully one day we'll be bought out by the Saudis and get a lot of money. That's my
That's right.
plan.
That's right. Everybody tuning in and everybody like talking in the chat and keeping this shit popping. We appreciate it. We'll keep it going. Just because Napier's out don't mean we are. So we'll keep it going. We didn't mention last thing that Billy Gonzalez will be the interim.
Yes.
I
really don't.
Huge.
Yeah. I really don't care.
I am curious who he plays though. Like, will it be Billy or Billy Gonzalez?
I don't know. That has not been said.
I would imagine if he's going to be the interim, that probably means Russ Callaway is going to call the plays, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean a whole lot, but I would like to, maybe put up a fight against Georgia. So,
yeah, I felt like Florida had a chance against Georgia. There was people saying that they had no shot. I was not of that inkling.
Because Georgia seems to play everybody tight.
Yeah,
they win, but they play everybody tight.
Yeah, like they pulled it out against Tennessee at the very end. They never led against them. Auburn, they should have lost. Auburn had a sneak, should have been a touchdown. That Auburn would have been up 17-0. Didn't happen. We all know what happened after that. And then, dude, Ole Miss had 35 points through 3 quarters, and then Georgia's defense shut them down in the 4th quarter. I felt pretty good about it until Mizell and Vernell Brown and having 3 true freshmen now in the defensive backfield. We'll see with those injuries in the next 2 weeks. But, yeah, I don't feel as confident now. I mean, Georgia's going to open as a 14, 15-point favorite, and the money will go to Georgia, so it'll probably go up to 17, 18 by kickoff. But, yeah, I was never of the opinion that it was going to be, no shot. But now I'm starting to feel like, this is it's not going to be good with all these injuries that Florida's had.
The injuries, I agree, especially in the secondary. It is brutal. What they're trotting out, that's brutal. I mean, Alfonso Allen getting plays right now. But by the way, last thing, we'll wrap up. Does Drake Stubbs not exist? Like, what's going on? I mean, the whole secondary is hurt. He can't get in and save his life. Like,
I forgot about that name until you just said it.
We got a former walk-on in the game before Drake Stubbs. Lagonza Hayward got everybody else that I could think of got in the game.
Yeah.
Lagonza Hayward got in the game. I mean, shoot, I forgot Jameer Grimsley existed. And he started the game. But like where I don't know why Drake Stubbs didn't play. That was kind of weird to me, but whatever. The injuries, I agree with you, that's going to be really tough. That said, I do believe, we see in the NFL a lot too. If a coach gets fired, like I do believe they'll have some type of spark. Because that's just how it goes normally, like right when you get an interim. But if they can ride it enough to win the game, probably not. But I tend to think that at least they'll make it interesting for a half.
Yeah, no, I agree. And they'll play us inspired, I think. I mean, look at UCLA with that they're turning around right now.
Yeah,
winning games with the interim. UAB, I know it was UAB, but what the hell they did yesterday as a 20-point dog and beating Memphis. It's not out of the realm of possibility, man. So, God, it'll be so cool. It'll be so nice if they beat Georgia. Probably not gonna happen, but it is what it is, man. All right, Graham. I'm gonna get back to doing what I'm doing, which is nothing, and enjoying the rest of my Sunday. It's 5:00, and still can't believe it happened. And now we have hope. Hope is not a plan, but we have hope. Like and subscribe. Talk to y'all next.